Good afternoon, Kent Boehm, 9 Business Group, and leader of the Elevate chat group. With us today, we have Tracy. Tracy, welcome to the Success Story interview. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company and what might be a good referral for you.
My name is Tracy Borrelli, and I'm an owner consultant for Mode Evaluation, which is management of data and evaluation. That's what that stands for. I help nonprofit leaders make better use of their data in their decision making. So people are at different stages of using data in their decision making, and I help them take it to the next level.
So how did you end up in the world of volunteer work, or not your volunteer work, but in the world of nonprofits?
Well, I was working towards a bachelor's degree, and that was in psychology. When I was towards the end of it, I took a co-op program and got a lot of work experience with nonprofits. And I stuck with it. And then as I continued on working with the nonprofit sector, realizing that there's a lot of information being collected from agencies, I started working for a research project that had the intention of having a really quick turnaround time of analyzing data and putting it back in the community where it could be used. So having the experience in the nonprofit sector and then experience with working with researchers in academia, it was a nice kind of like full circle return back to the community to work in the community with nonprofits again. And I did work as an evaluator for about 8 years at an inner city healthcare center, working with a lot of folks who have adversity around mental illness and addictions and homelessness, that sort of thing. So that's how I got into that.
Really rewarding. But what does it mean to collect data? I talked to a guy last week, Phil Unger. I think I have the company right, Canadian Group, which also specializes in data interpretation. Fascinating interview, but at the same time, I'm kind of going, what does data mean to you? Because I think nowadays it's this broad term because we can collect so much data, but what does it mean and what data should we worry about, or what data do you guys worry about?
That's very insightful of you, actually. There's a lot of people out there who think about data and numerical analyses, like statistical analyses is sort of synonymous with data. But for an evaluator like myself, data can be so many different forms of information. Some people collect a lot of names and demographic information over time, or they might also have a lot of, they might even have handwritten notes that they take for each interaction with someone. They may collect pictures and images, or just stories, video stories like you're doing here. When you start organizing that information, for me, that's when it becomes data. It's when you have that information and there's starting to get to be an accumulation of it. And then you put some framework around it to organize it. When you organize it in such a way that can answer questions later, that's really taking it to another level, right? Then you're talking about analytics and analyses. So there's a huge spectrum of what counts as data. I think that a lot of people don't really understand or take the time to think about when they do collect it, and it ends up all over the place. It takes a special set of skills and tools and being very deliberate and disciplined when it's time to answer questions and use that information. So that's when it's handy to have someone around who's got experience and expertise in being able to see the wide range of information and data and help make sense of it and get around some of the hiccups and obstacles to using it appropriately in decision making.
In summary, data in your world is simply, or start with organizations, individual organizations that, for whatever reason, have been collecting information of various types in various forms, but decide or realize that they have accidentally or intentionally collected some stuff, data, information, images, photos, files, but they want to understand it better or do something with it.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Okay.
it could be going to waste.
Okay. It does go to waste. Absolutely.
It does. Yeah.
So how long have you been in this space?
I've been so on and off over the years, including going back to when I was doing this in my bachelor's degree and then later in a master's degree, about 20 years altogether. But in my business specifically, I only started that about 2 years ago. So
Okay.
everything is kind of built on top of each other to get to this point.
One of my favorite questions I like to ask, and I always get a different answer, so it's always fun, and I always have to do it carefully. So are you in dream mode, build mode, or finish mode with your business?
A little bit of dream and build.
Oh yeah, good. Okay.
Yeah, somewhere early on. Yeah.
Cool.
I
So
think I would. Oh, go ahead.
what is that dream then? What is that thing that you're looking to accomplish if it's in dream and build mode versus finish and sell, for lack of a better word?
Well, when I started this, I thought all you did was walk into a business with a plan and a couple of customers, a couple of leads, and you were a business, and that was it. It was done. What I've learned now over the last couple of years, and probably more recently, is that it's much more complex than that. That testing your assumptions and making sure you understand what people want and need can lead to reconfiguring or reimagining and redesigning what it is that you're in service to do. So that's kind of where I'm at, is like I'm trying
Was the
to.
vision shifted much in the last 2 years?
I think it has. I think I knew that at the time that it was going to be just a simple matter of picking up the phone and networking with people and getting out and doing presentations. Was all it was going to, and people would just naturally just want to do business with me. Why wouldn't they, right?
Everybody needs to understand that data. It makes perfect sense to me. Why don't they want to do something with it?
Right. But I didn't have my own data. So I mean, it's a matter of now collecting my own data and understanding what people really want and how they want that delivered. Do people really also see the need to take a deeper dive into what they're gathering and collecting and organizing and making use of? So I've been checking those assumptions and trying to find out more about what people are facing and the challenges they're up against, and then, you know, like if I reimagine things, hopefully it falls into place in a way that helps me grow my business, myself personally and myself professionally, and to make other people more satisfied in the end, not just, you know, here I
Can you
am.
tell us, without breaching any confidentiality, can you share a cool success story with a client you've had that you came in, worked your magic, went through some data, and did something for them, improved their decision making? Or so what was can you tell us a success story of one of your clients in your journey that you've taken them through?
Sure. One that comes to mind from time to time is a group that were doing their strategic planning, and as a part of that process, I was gathering internal data out of their database, and so we were looking at healthcare information across their panel, so all of the patients that they were serving. And when I presented it to them, I put it in order of, you know, like the top 10 illnesses that people were experiencing that came to the clinic. And so many of them were mental illnesses, and a good huge chunk of them were personality disorders. And they were a little shocked. I was shocked at how high the percentage of their patients were experiencing these extreme disorders. And their feedback to me was, that seems kind of low. And I was taken aback by that. They were like, that seems kind of low. I think we deal with that far more often than what that information says. So they challenged me and gave me some directions on how to go back into the database and try and dredge up more to be more reflective of what they were actually experiencing as professionals. And when I did that, it didn't change an awful lot. I got a little bit more, but not an awful lot more. But when we took this to the strategic planning process, what happened was people were very concerned that they weren't inputting the information as consistently as they thought that they could, and that this was something that they could pay more attention to. The other thing that came up was that they realized that here they were dealing with all of this mental health stuff all the time, and they didn't have a mental health practitioner in the clinic. So, and it was only a matter of months after this that they were able to connect with the system and find ways to contract with mental health practitioners and bring that service to their patients and their clients who really needed it, so that it would be there on site and not have to, create this extra barrier of, well, now we have to make an appointment with somebody who's off site, and maybe they'll get to see them and maybe it'll take months before they can see them. So it improved their services pretty quickly. They also found, that they could be representing themselves a little bit more accurately in their system themselves for their own use. And I think that that's a great outcome for everybody, really.
That's pretty special. That's a pretty big smile you have on your face too. A
Yeah.
lot of pride, I think, in there for you. So how big a team do you run? Is it just you, or have you managed to accumulate some similar people on your team that have similar ideology and philosophy, or are we just sort of at the beginning stage of your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, beginning stage of the entrepreneurial journey. This is it. This is me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does it look like in 5 years then? What's the vision?
In 5 years, the vision is being able to be, I think, more connected in the community as an evaluator, and being able to partner with other evaluators who do the work also, but not necessarily, not necessarily connected with each other. So it's a fairly collaborative profession. So being able to reach out to people and say, hey, I've got some work here. Do you want to help me out? Or this maybe isn't my area of expertise, but I know that you have some expertise, or this is your kind of project. Why don't you take that? That kind of thing can happen. And so I'd like to see more of that happening. And in terms of having my own team, I think that's kind of up in the air. I'm really flexible about what that looks like. But I would definitely love to be serving a lot more organizations in mental health and addictions and homelessness, and even beyond that. I don't feel too limited by that expertise, but I know that it's important to those organizations to connect with an evaluator that has that area of expertise. So
Thank you for sharing. What is the biggest challenge you faced this year? If we could, quote unquote, if you could make a wish, big bag of money, magic wand, and fix one thing in your business this year, what would be the one thing you'd like to fix?
oh boy, I would go back.
Pardon me, I'm not going to say fix. Let's rephrase that. Bad terminology. Put in place, establish, or accomplish in your business.
To wave a magic wand and go back a year.
No, we get to go forward though. We can't go back. If I could go back, I'm going back 27 months, and March 2020 is never happening. So
thank you. Yeah. That would be it too. I'd be like, no, there was no pandemic. So to move like forward a year, that's what you're saying, right? I would have it figured out and sorted out, what people are needing in terms of like this really fast, rapid growth around technology, and how it's there. There's all kinds of great tools to use to gather your information and organize it and sort it and analyze it. But there's still a lot of people in the nonprofit space that have kind of been left behind by that. And so I think that there's some bridging to do. And I like to figure out, I'd like to zoom in and figure out the tools that we need to develop to help bridge people from being kind of the technology have not to the technology have, and to be able to tailor that for people and say, okay, this is what's out there, ignore it, it doesn't apply to you. Or this is what's out there, it could really work for you now, it might not work for you for another project later on, but it's okay to use this right now. Stuff like that, to be able to bridge that would be really cool.
Organizations do you want to help in the next 12 to 24 months?
More, I think, the medium-sized nonprofit who's gotten a taste of what they can do with data and the information that they have to understand and talk about what they do, and see where they're going as they move forward. People who've gotten a taste of that and can see, oh, like we could do better, we could do more, we could really use this kind of information in the story we're trying to tell to our donors and our funders, and even to our own staff about the hard work that they're doing, and really use it that way really effectively. There's also the people who have seen how other people are using their data, but they're not really sure. It's kind of a black box. So I like to work with those two kinds of organizations.
How many organizations? Do you want to help one, or do you want to help 50 of them? Do you want to help 500?
In the next year,
Yeah.
I think somewhere between 5 and 20, depending on the size of the project. It could be small projects, but I think that would be awesome. 5 really big projects, 20 really small ones. I'd be happy with any of that. Somewhere.
What would that do for you? What would that do for your mojo, your meaning of life, your purpose? What would it mean to you to accomplish, say, 12 or 13 solid engagements?
To know that I've touched that many organizations and help them tweak things up so that they're able to answer questions that they have about the way they work in the world, and knowing that as they do that, that enables them to do better work in the world. I think that that's an incredible opportunity to, because even a small organization can touch a lot of lives that are really looking for help. So I think that's where my heart lies. That's why I like the nonprofit sector, is because there's so much going on, and with people that you don't necessarily see in the bigger for-profit business.
Here, you kind of mentioned about going back in time and fixing something. So I'm going to ask a bit of kind of picking up on that. The question is, and it may not be aligned, but what is the biggest mistake you made since starting your journey? What is that one thing you would go back and wish I would have done this different, or have applied this in that way?
I don't know if it was a mistake, but I assumed that this thing called a business plan was what I needed, when what I really needed was to come at it more like an entrepreneur, with testing and iterative cycles of figuring out what people want from an evaluator, because I had spent so many years in an office at an organization with people around me all the time who it was easy to talk to them and find out what they needed. And the circles that we ran in were all kind of thinking about data the same way. So coming out from that very protective environment, it didn't occur to me that I should be asking other organizations what they want and need. So that would be something that I would go back and change.
Cool, thank you. You use the term evaluator. Is that the job title? Is that the function of data analyst, or what? Like, you say the word evaluator and I kind of go business evaluator, a trade-in car evaluator. Can you maybe narrow it down for the people watching?
Sure. An evaluator approaches questions about how a program is functioning in the same way that a researcher might approach a scientific problem, like in the social sciences. So, but there's usually a judgment attached to that. We're trying to find out if a program is doing what it set out to do to help the problems that it's trying to alleviate. So if a program is trying to help a number of people get themselves job ready, that's one kind of program, a social program that a lot of people are familiar with. That program might be getting funding to move maybe 100 people through every 3 months or 6 months to go from not being job ready to being employed. And an evaluator looks at how well that program is doing what it set out to do. And they do that using scientific tools. So we use a scientific method. But when all the data is through and analyzed, there's at the end of the day, somebody says, well, we're doing a good job. We need to continue doing what we're doing, or something's wrong. We need to change it or fix it, or our ideas are a little bit obsolete. How do we manage things now? There's all kinds of stuff like that. And there's different ways of looking at it. Like, if you're just trying to start a new program, you might do a pilot to test it and see if it's going to do what you hope it will do. And there's a lot of pilot programs that don't carry on because they didn't have a measure of success that people expected it to have.
Fascinating.
Does that help?
Yep. One last question for you. What do you want to be known for?
I would like to be known for bringing more of an evaluation mindset to the nonprofit sector, that it's not just the tools and the methods and that kind of expertise around managing the data. It's also how you think about your program and the accomplishments that you're making. It's a kind of curiosity and trying to think about the context that when you're gathering information together, because it all has this interplay and it's complex and exciting. But it's not just the tools and the methods. It's a way of thinking and a way of being in a program that I think is kind of exciting, and I'd like to be the person that brings that to them.
Cool. Thank you. So just to wrap it up again, thank you, Tracy Borrelli with Mode, is it? MODE?
Yes.
And if you have any questions, we can find you at what website, Tracy?
At modevaluation.ca.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You'll just say it again. Let's cut you off.
Oh, okay. Modevaluation.ca. And so it's spelled MODEVALUATION.ca.
Fantastic. Thanks again for being our guest, and look forward to continuing the conversation. Have a good week.
Thank you, Kent.